Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. Today we've got a great story where OP got malicious compliance against them. But first, a story from Breaking Cankles. Coworker doesn't want me touching his customers' cars? Okay, very well then. This happened about 5 years ago. I used to work at a dealership. I was part of the detailing crew. There was about 5 of us in that department, but only 3 of us on site at a time. For context, when a sales rep makes a sale on a vehicle, they bring it to us to get it detailed, along with stickers removed from windows. Nothing too serious as they're already fairly clean. Now, the way this dealership works is there's only one detailing department for 5 different dealerships. So we would detail cars for Toyota, Volkswagen, Nissan, GMC, and Hyundai. So yes, a fairly small detailing squad for 5 different dealerships. It sounds like a lot, but surprisingly it wasn't too bad. This specific sales rep, we'll call him Jake was married to this other sales rep we'll call Mary. For whatever reason, Jake hated my guts for almost the entire time I was employed there. No idea why. My assumption is that one day he saw me talking to his wife, which I didn't know it was his wife at the time, but that's because I was getting some info on a trade-in that came in and I was thinking about purchasing that car. It was a 2016 Nissan 370Z Nismo. No, I never ended up buying it. I just wanted to get more information about the car, how much the monthly payments would be, etc. I guess he didn't like me talking to her, so he held a grudge against me. Again, this is just speculation. Also, I want to note that I've been in the detailing field for about 6 years at the time, so I had my fair share of experience, and I was actually one of the best detailers in that department. Now then, one day Jake came up to our department with a sold unit. And I kind of overheard him talking to one of my coworkers about me. He was talking behind my back, and I mean he was saying rude stuff about me, but I was able to make out most of the things he was saying. One particular line I did understand was, "Hey, I have this car here, customer wants you to just remove the stickers. Nothing else. Also, make sure OP never touches the cars I bring up, okay? Do I make myself clear? He doesn't know what he's doing and he's an R word." Me, acting like I didn't just hear what he said, continued working on my own stuff, and thought to myself, what did I do to the guy that he doesn't like me? But whatever, I guess. If he doesn't want me to touch his car, then be it. Cue malicious compliance. One day, I was the only one that showed up. One guy called out and the other said he'll be really late. I didn't mind. That day was also the day that Jake brought a sold unit first thing in the morning to us for a cleaning. And I was the only one there. He didn't know that. He thought the other guys were here working on another car or whatnot. He dropped the car there, left the keys on a board where we keep the other keys, and he walked away. Little did he know I was alone. I did not touch his car as per his request. The car sat there for 4 hours. He came up to pick up the car and noticed that it hadn't been touched at all. He came to me pissed and said, "Why hasn't my car been touched? Did no one touch it?" I said, "No, Jake, no one touched the car." Which he replied with, "Why? The customer's waiting. What the freak, why didn't you do it?" And I said, "Oh no, I can't. You said to not let me touch whatever car you bring us because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm an R word. And sadly, I'm the only one here at the moment, so I guess you'll have to wait for the next guy to show up." Assuming he does show up today. He looked shocked and started apologizing because he said, "I didn't mean any of that." I just ignored him and went back to doing what I was doing. He had to explain to his customer that he had to reschedule them for another date. Our boss later found out about what happened, and he had a long talk to him about treating his fellow colleagues with respect, and to not discriminate anyone for any reason at all. I know the ending wasn't as satisfying as most posts here, but I felt good that day when he found out I heard everything he said about me that day. Honestly, it's one of those totally unjustified comments that you hear about yourself from somebody else. And despite the fact that it's your job to do that work and you should just try to ignore it and do your job, I think you hear that and you just go, screw it, fine. I'm just literally not going to do my job. Is it worth it to get in trouble with the job for not doing the work because this guy said that about you? Or should you just try to stay professional and do it anyways? I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Disassociated Developer. I can walk? See ya. This was about 7 to 10 years ago. I needed a cheap commuter car and knew my budget. I'd saved up $3,500 cash and was ready to buy. The car would give my wife and I some freedom in not having to juggle the car for our 2 busy schedules between 2 jobs. and unfortunately 2 very different class schedules in a state that's pretty spread out, i.e. public transportation wasn't really effective at that time. It's gotten loads better now in the larger cities, medium size compared to the coastal big cities. I digress. There was a dealership on a busy road in the city I lived in at the time. They didn't have the greatest reputation. I'd heard a few stories over the years, but they had an inexpensive car, a first-generation Hyundai Tiburon that had lowish miles, about 75,000 or so if memory serves me well, a manual transmission, and it looked pretty clean. It was white in the online pictures, which isn't my favorite color, but the paint looked to be in excellent condition. Overall, looked pretty nice. It was listed for $4,000. Figured I could manage a small loan for that, and should be able to negotiate price. Before going, I did my research. I compared dealership price, estimating from several sites using all features listed on their ad, KBB, Nada, Edmunds, etc., and also compared comparable cars across the country and locally being sold by owners. The highest price I could find from the estimations and websites was $4,000 for a similarly clean car with lower miles. So I felt armed with the info I needed and had copies on my phone ready to go. I got there and noticed that the car was actually painted with a pearlescent paint job. The most visible color was white, but in certain lights, it was actually sparkly pink. That would have to be painted over. No thank you. But that was just more negotiating material, since I doubted that's a popular color scheme for a car. The test drive went well, nothing major noted. My visual inspection around the car inside and out didn't find anything, so I was feeling pretty good about the state of the car. I felt confident the car was worth the higher end of the estimates I'd found, but wanted to negotiate down a few $100s for a new paint job I would do elsewhere. Let the negotiations begin, I thought. The salesperson didn't know what the price was and went to the financial person to get that data. I told them what their online price was and wanted to start there. He seemed new and unsure that he really needed to go talk to the finance person first, which maybe should have been a red flag. I shook my head and waited. He came back saying the car was $6,000 because they had to replace the transmission, so they needed to get their money back for that work, and started down that path. I'm like, nope, here's my research, and laid it all out. Made the sales guy super nervous. After an hour of banter, I ended up getting the dealership manager, or whatever their title was, telling me that the car was worth $6,000, not out the door price either, blah blah blah. I got frustrated and told her that, congratulations, your work on the transmission earned the car the top end of what it can be worth with the options, mileage, make, and model we're talking about. That's $4,000 and I'm happy to pay that, but not a penny more on the car before taxes, title, or licensing is figured. To which she snapped back, take it or leave it. And the clouds of frustration parted. The skies cleared and the angelic courses of malicious compliance sang through the air and my mind. You're right. Good luck selling it. I'm out. And I walked away. She tried to tell me I was obligated, that they'd already gotten my verbal agreement to buy the car because I'd started negotiations, blah blah blah. I just laughed as maniacally as I could muster. Imagine Vizzini from The Princess Bride, and kept walking. They threatened to get their lawyers involved, and I gave them the finger as I drove away in our car toward home. And guess what? Never got a call from their lawyer or served any papers. The dealership actually went out of business a few months later. So unexpected. I later learned how lucky I was when I talked to my dad about the dealership. He'd apparently tried to trade a car in with them a while before then, but they handled things a little differently with him, asked for his car keys to evaluate his car, then refused to give him his keys back when they tried to spring on extra fees to his sale, and he wanted to walk. Dad had to start dialing 911 before they gave up and returned his keys. I mean, I've heard of predatory businesses before, but that is actually predatory. I'm wondering if they didn't get shut down because somebody actually did call 911 on a company like that. I've heard surprise fees and trying to spring things on you at the last second, but I haven't heard any that actually tried to entrap you into a deal or, hold on to your keys and refuse to give them back to you. Verbal agreement to buy the car because you negotiated. Our next story is from No One, Two, the time I was maliciously complied against. New car story. I was just recently graduated from university and was about to purchase my first new car. This would be in the 90s. The era of haggling down the price of a new car had recently ended, but I decided to try my luck anyway. We had picked the make and model of the car we wanted, highly influenced by a $5,000 rebate that the recent university graduates were eligible for. I decided to try and haggle down the price. The dealer wouldn't budge, saying that it was handed down from the gods themselves that they could not sell the car for anything other than the MSRP, no more and no less. I took this as a challenge. When presented with the paperwork, I went over it with a fine-tooth comb. Eventually, I spotted it. There was a charge of $150 for pinstriping. The dealer explained that this was a paint stripe down the side of the car. Determined to get a deal, I pounced. I argued that I'd never asked for pinstriping to be applied, so I should not be charged for it. The dealer stated that I was being charged for it because this was the last car of this model with the options I wanted on the lot, and the pinstriping had been applied already from the manufacturer. I went full Karen mode, accusing them of adding on this charge to try and get extra money from me, adding on a feature that I hadn't asked for to milk me out of my hard-earned money. We went back and forth until I finally got the dealer to remove the pinstriping charge. Heady with my victory, the dealer showed me the car, which indeed had a thin green stripe down the side, and said that it would be ready to be picked up tomorrow. I arrived the next day, ready to pick up my new car. They drove it out to me and the green stripe was gone. The dealer explained that since I wasn't willing to pay for the pinstriping, they'd taken the car into the garage overnight, had the paint sanded down to remove the pinstriping, and repainted the car. Therefore, I wasn't forced to pay for something that I clearly didn't want. I thought to myself that the cost of doing this, paying a mechanic to sand down and repaint a car overnight, probably being paid overtime, would far exceed the paltry $150. But if I wasn't willing to pay for the pinstriping, then by God, that dealer made sure that I wasn't going to get the pinstriping. Can we all agree though that if the manufacturer or the dealership themselves apply a special coat of paint or some kind of additional detailing appearance type thing, that the person who agrees to buy it shouldn't have to incur those costs? I mean, I guess OP can't complain, they argued against it, but OP should have been able to have the pinstripe and not have to have paid for it to begin with. Also, everybody in the comments are saying that it's actually a decal, that they just used a heat gun and pulled it right off the car. So clearly they were trying to milk a few extra dollars here and there. And our final story of the day is from 10K Fire Ants. We want our employees to use the time off they've earned. The last 2 months of my job could be 3 parts between here and r/anti-work. Someone else's malicious compliance helped me finally leave. But this was when I finally decided to leave my role as the sole account manager for a marketing and web design firm. While leaving past jobs gave me graduation goggles, aka short-term regret and second thoughts, everything this time around made me want to leave yesterday. But as I did more and more job interviews each lunch break, there was one thing I had to check. You see, the year before I carefully planned my May vacation for only as many vacation days that my second year at the company provided, lo and behold, I returned home and was shorted a check by a few $100s. I emailed one of my 2 bosses, Boss 1, to learn that while a second-year employee earns X days over the course of the year, I simply hadn't accrued all my paid days off yet. My time off was approved, but only a couple of days were paid. My boyfriend, who worked in upper management, explained that this is because if an employee quits in January, you don't want to pay them their entire year's worth of vacation out at once. Annoying, but at least it made sense. Flash forward to me preparing to leave. My specific question was, at what rate do I accrue time off? I didn't want to be done on February 28th if I'd accrue like 2 or so days on March 1st and miss out on a better payout. And no, I wasn't putting up with this job's crap for several more months for a big Christmas payout, though I wish I'd planned it better. One night I found my employee handbook with my boyfriend's management eye to help read the policy. Turns out it didn't matter. Company name doesn't pay out for vacation days earned, whether the employee leaves voluntarily or involuntarily. Now I was just pissed. If you're not paying out vacation days ever, why accrue them and not just give them all out at once? Either accrue the days to avoid massive payouts or don't pay out ever and give everyone their allotted lump sum for the year on January 1st. Our fiscal year was the calendar year. Pick one. I asked Boss 2 about this, not letting on my planned exit, and she cheerfully responded, "Yup, we want employees to take the time off they deserve and not bank it." Such a sweet self-care sounding thing. When I gave my notice, my bosses convinced me to give 3 weeks. I was ordered to complete a 5-page exit doc for my team and successor. My bosses rushed their hiring process so I could train my replacement one day. Client spreadsheets had to be updated, a new one needed creating, and I was still performing my regular job duties, which were already too much, hence my leaving. But my 3rd year equals 3 vacation days right off the bat. In a moment of malicious compliance, I looked forward to taking off every Friday through my departure. After all, I needed to use the time off I'd earned since there'd be no payout. Boss 2 was already on edge over everything, and her immediate response was, "Can you take Fridays off and still finish your exit doc and duties?" We were also short-staffed and others would be out of office, she said. It did not matter. I had 3 days to use and 0 payout options. My boss responded, "Let me talk to Boss 1. I did not get my Fridays off, but suddenly they agreed to pay me a few $100 extra on my last paycheck. I'm still convinced my payout was less than what my vacation days amounted to, and I should have done the math to hold them to it, but my vacation days didn't disappear into thin air, which I honestly think they just expected. Honestly, just because of how crap their policies were and how crap they try to treat their workers, I feel like OP just out of sheer principle should have taken those vacation days off, even if they agreed to like a hefty payout. I don't actually blame OP for taking the money, but it would be so much more powerful for OP to say, "Your policies are so crap, I'm taking this time off, you guys are going to be doomed, and I'm going to ride off into the sunset. Consider treating your workers better in the future." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy compliance story, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.